The topic today, as you probably remember, is worry. And that's a big one for so many of us. And honestly, worries are probably the single biggest, most common sign of anxiety in our lives and in the lives of our families as well. And just like anxiety, worry is not automatically bad. You can think of worry as the thinking part of anxiety. It's also our mind's attempt to control the future, to think, plan, to try to figure out challenges. And yet this natural process, this natural thinking process we have, yes, it can take on a life of its own as well. And it can, in many instances, even become debilitating. And so when you think about worry, that's why it's really important to know that the one thing you should always remember about worry, if you want to gain control over it, is to stop fighting worry. Because it's not the worries themselves, the content of the worry or the specific thoughts that are usually causing the problem. Unfortunately, it's usually our attempt to make them go away, to suppress them, to reject them. That is the thing that tends to amplify worries. It causes worries to spiral more strongly. It causes them to become intrusive. This suppression effect is just how the mind works. The more we suppress, the stronger these experiences bounce back. You can see this in the smallest examples of how our minds work. If I tell you, don't think of a white bear, of course, for just a millisecond, that white bear is going to pop right into your mind. And that's how it works for our worries, our emotions, but many times over. Now, in contrast, if we want to gain control over our worries, what we actually can do most effectively is to accept and observe those worries with more distance and curiosity. And when we actually start owning and in that sense and really engaging with our worries in this way, we will feel like we own those worries rather than feel like these worries are owning us. We gain control. And the icing on the cake is that when we engage more with worries, almost inevitably, worries will go down. So it's really a win-win situation. So today, what I want to do is share with you one of the best research-backed approaches we have to taking more ownership over your worry. And it's called a worry appointment. So here the idea is, it's kind of just what it sounds like. You actually schedule time to worry. You schedule concentrated, detailed worry time. Usually you want to have about 15 to 30 minutes available. And when you schedule that worry time, you also decide to postpone your worries to that time. So if you have a lot of stuff going through your head right now, you say, okay, at 4 p.m., this is when I'm going to worry. So I'm just going to postpone it to that time. Don't pick a time right when you wake up or right before bed, because those are times when we don't want to, set the tone with concentrated worry. But pick that time. And it helps to do this because what happens when we have compulsive worry that feels like it won't stop is that we're often these thoughts and worries are just shallow. They're vague. They just run along. And we never actually take time to stop to look at them. As a result, we can't get any sense of what we're actually feeling, what's going on, what the causes and consequences of these worries are. So in a concentrated worry appointment time, we're writing down every detail of every worry in our head. And it's really good. I think writing it down is the most effective. So have a special journal or just a piece of paper that you go to, type if you like to. But in that 15 to 30 minutes, you're writing down the excruciating good, bad, and ugly of the worries. So for example, if I'm worried about an upcoming meeting, I want to understand, as I said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I might say, okay, I'm going into this meeting, and the first thing I ever do in a meeting is I start sweating, and it's going to show, and I'm going to, start smelling funny, and it's going to be embarrassing. And then I'm going to get up and I'm going to stammer, and I'm worried that people will start to think that I don't know what I'm talking about. And you can see how this goes. And you just write down every thought that comes to your head. Now, I said the good, the bad, and the ugly, because you also want to write down things like, and the thing is, if I do well in this presentation at work, I will really impress my boss. And then if I impress my boss, I could actually maybe advance myself at work. And I actually am starting to think that if I'm in that other position at work instead of this one, I actually might be happier because of X, Y, and Z. So again, you're detailing the stream of consciousness of worries, getting as concrete as you can about what's bothering you, what's important, what bad things could happen, but also the good possibilities. And as you're writing these down, so you're writing them down, there's also an approach you want to take. You want to observe your worries kindly. with some distance. So saying things like, okay, there's the thought that I might break into a sweat. Or just observe your thoughts almost as if it's like a plane skywriting in the sky and you're looking up. Usually it's at the beach, right? In the sky, the writing in the sky is happening, and you have that distance. You're not judging it. You're keeping an open mind. And so you're writing down everything 15 to 30 minutes with a kind and curious attitude. And what you'll find is that it's actually hard to worry for 30 minutes. You'll start to run out of things. And that's really helpful too, because when you run out, and you also realize that there's an end to worries. They don't go on forever, even though it feels like they can. So when you do this worry appointment, this concentrated worry time, you're going to become practiced in actually postponing your worries to that time so that you'll have fewer problems with worries that are intruding on your daily life, if that's a problem. Sometimes they seem to hijack us out of nowhere. When you have a regular worry appointment, your brain learns that you can postpone your worries to that time. Now, not only are there decades, I mean decades of research showing that this worry appointment technique can help reduce worrying, even in clinical anxiety disorders like generalized anxiety disorder and panic disorder. But a study from 2011, it was published in the journal Science, one of the great journals in the world. And it showed that when you have students journal for just 10 minutes before a big test, use this technique of detailed worries right before the test, and you do a controlled randomized study where you have a control condition and you really test this out in an experimental way, people who journal about their worries before a test actually have better grades, have better performance on that test afterwards. So we see really robust and powerful effects of this technique for people with day-to-day worries as well as clinical levels. So that's really the heart of the worry appointment. I just want to spend one more minute to say that this is enough to be super helpful, but you can take it one step further and use worries after you journal for more effective problem solving. So once you've done this worry appointment, you've written everything down, take a break for at least 15 to 30 minutes, do something else, press the reset button, get immersed in something that captures your attention, and then come back to your list and read it over. What you'll find is probably 50% of those worries aren't even relevant anymore. And that's a very powerful reflection to us about how sometimes worries are not always reality, right? You'll also see that there's certain worries that still stick out. And this gives you an opportunity to prioritize. Now you can say, oh, I am really worried about that upcoming meeting at work. And if I dig in a little deeper, what I know now is that work presentation is really important to me. I probably could stand to do a little more preparation. Maybe there's something I can do about this to get in front of the problem instead of just be reactive. So what we're doing when we go away from the worry list and come back is we're letting the dust settle, giving ourselves distance, and now we have a new view. Now we can actually gain some wisdom from these worries and find out what we might need to really work on, and then we can make plans and take actions. And when we make these effective plans and take these actions that allow us to pursue a goal, worries always go down, anxieties always diminish. So we can actually see that not only are worries more manageable, but we can actually use them to make our lives better, to spot a brewing problem instead of letting it fester, and to actually get in front of the problem and really use our worry to make our lives better. That is the key. I'd be happy to answer any questions about that. Remember, again, as I mentioned a couple times before, when you schedule this worry appointment, make the best effort you can to postpone worries as they come up to the worry appointment. Now, don't be hard on yourself if it doesn't work right away or work completely. You can say, okay, it's okay. You don't have to worry now, but if I worry a little, it's okay. So be kind, curious, have an open approach to your worries and to yourself. And this is the best way to take back control. So now we'll be turning off recording.